What's up, y'all? You're listening to the My Nation podcast. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Robert Cessna. It's here, Cease. It's game week. This week is already feeling like an eternity to me. Maybe it's just because we've got a million things to write about. Maybe it's just anxiousness for the start of the season. But hey, another offseason in the books, and it's game week.
Yeah, without a doubt. It doesn't matter who they're playing, but the fact that they are playing UTSA, a pretty decent group of five teams. So it's a kind of game where we should find out things about A&M. If you're playing Northwestern State or someone like that, you're not going to learn anything. If you're playing too good a game, like was the case last year, you might lose the ball game. But I think A&M's got a lot to gain Saturday.
They certainly do, and we talked last week about how there's a lot of potential in this A&M team, but they've got a lot to prove. And I think we will start to see some answers this Saturday, particularly on the defense, in my opinion, where they've got quite a few new faces, tried to revamp some things in the secondary. And so, Cease, let me ask you this. What are your three biggest things you're looking to see from the Aggies this weekend?
Yeah, number one, the defense, because studying this game, UTSA comes in with a very good offense, got a good quarterback, receivers, linemen. They have everything. So considering how the last season ended, this is a good test for A&M's, as you mentioned, revamped defense. You don't want to see guys running wide open, even if it's only 4 or 5 plays. You don't want to see that. Are they going to put pressure on the quarterback? Couldn't do that last year with 3 first-round or second-round draft picks. Are they going to be able to tackle this year? Tackling at times was a problem, so I don't want to just rag on the defense, but actually I'm more interested in defense because UTSA doesn't return any starters on defense. So I'm not going to know how much we're going to find out about A&M's offense. But right off the bat, there's about 3 or 4 things just from the defense alone. Coverage, what pressure, tackling. That's the basics, but yet I want to see that.
Well, and we've got our handy-dandy depth chart right here. A&M could start a rowing team, I think, with the number of oars on there. But
and play Texas. Doesn't Texas have a rowing team? The Lone Star Showdown rowing.
There you go. But a lot of oars on the defensive line in particular, except there's one guy. There's one guy who does not have an oar next to his name. Can you guess which one on the defensive line that is?
I would guess Regis. I haven't looked at it real close, but
that's a good guess.
Since he's returning.
But no, it's not. It's Cassius Howell.
That'd be my second guess.
That would have been the second guess.
What the players said.
We know we're going to see Cassius Howell. We know that Albert Regis and DJ Hicks and Tyler Onyedem are going to play. We know that Dayon Hayes and TJ Searcy are going to play. But who from the litter of guys that have a ton of potential can separate themselves and earn some of those playing reps on a more regular basis if they can put together a good game this weekend?
Here's the deal, which we learned quickly last year, because at this time last year, everyone was touting Nick Scorton for All-American honors after what he did and come in spring training. And I'm not blaming this on Nick's feet because there was a lot of problems with the defense last year, just not the line, the secondary. I would say all 3 phases. But what I'm getting at is Nick didn't have a great year. The defensive line didn't have a great year, and we thought they were going to be good. So you're right, Alex. I want to see – I've heard so much about Cassius Howell, and I don't want to jinx him, but, are you going to put up numbers? Am I going to look down and see a lot of double teams? Last year, as good as A&M was, I didn't see double teams sometimes on even those first-round draft picks. So you're right. Watch that line.
Watch that line for sure. What's the second thing you're looking for from the Aggies this weekend?
If I'm going to stick with the defense, of course, we'll get to the offense, the wide receivers. How good does Marcel Reed throw the ball? But actually, one thing I'm looking at is I want to see – I hate to use this word. Some people might – go ahead and email if you don't like me, whatever, for saying it. But I want to see Torian York be an All-American. He's anywhere from a third teamer in SEC to an All-American. He had a real good freshman year, but he had Edgar Cooper with him. I want to see him step up and be an All-American because he's got a lot of tools, but I quite haven't seen that yet. Because if he doesn't, Scooby Williams could pass him as the best linebacker, which wouldn't be that bad of a thing for A&M.
Well, I think one thing that will help Torian York this year is the fact that Scooby Williams is 100%. The fact that he played on a torn meniscus last year still just baffles me. Like, that is impressive in itself. And you think about, he had the interception return against Mississippi State and was making some cuts and stuff. That had to hurt. But I think that a healthy Scooby Williams will help Torian York play at a higher level. That is something that I think will happen.
Probably. And, of course, you've had podcasts when you had a torn meniscus. You've done well, so you understand how that goes. And I'm with you. If Scooby's healthy, it's going to help.
Well, how about the offense? What's the one thing you're looking for on the offense?
Once again, getting back to wide receivers, because, man, I don't know. I guess it's opening season. All of a sudden, I lost my voice when I walked in.
Yeah, I might be moving away.
No, I've been to the doctor a long time ago. But, wide receivers, tight ends, how they're going to use them, even if it's against UTSA. How many times do I see Marcel Reed throw and I go, hey, he looked like a quarterback. He doesn't need to be Tom Brady. He just needs to hit the guys when they're open. So I am looking at that passing game because I'll be quite honest with you folks. If A&M has trouble running the ball or the offensive line has a problem against a defense returning no starters, then I'd be a little bit worried.
Yeah, you look at the depth chart, and Casey Concepcion's the only receiver that does not have an or next to his name. Shocker. I think the four guys we're going to see the most of are obviously him, Mario Craver, Ashton Bethel-Roman, and then Terry Bussey. It's going to be interesting to see how they move Bussey around, how they get the ball in his hands, and how much more comfortable he might look in the offense in this second season. Because, look, last year, one, he was making a big jump having played 2A high school football to the SEC, and two, he got moved to receiver in the middle of fall camp. So that in itself, I think, everybody was wondering, what's Bussey going to do? What's Bussey going to do? Elko is getting annoyed at how many times he was getting asked about Bussey in the offseason, and I think it was rightfully so. But now that Bussey has another year under his belt and he's been through the whole offseason with this offense, and maybe the offense has some expanded capabilities with the wide receiver room that they have. Here's another thing that I thought about yesterday was I was reading something about Micah Hudson at Texas Tech, and like A&M's got a lot of optimism about this wide receiver room in spite of losing him in the spring, which I think is a good thing for the Aggies.
Well, let's not forget they lost Noah Thomas and they wanted to keep him. They thought they were going to keep all those. I'm with you because last year I saw Bussey play, actually, when he was junior year.
You saw him twice.
Against Centerville. And here's the deal. It's tough to make a jump from 2A to SEC. And I'm not saying he's not going to be an All-American or anything along those lines. But I think the fact that A&M played him up so much last year, and really, and Elko would say, well, no, it's just not us. The media played him up so much. That's how they were lacking really in overall depth. They all across the board. They just weren't good enough to be anything better than 8-5. This year, I think their talent is a lot better. And like I said, you're right. I'm with you. I want to see what Bussey does. I want to see what we've heard so much about Bethel-Roman, So let's see what he does, because now you've got two other good receivers. So these are all things that are called growth as they move forward. And Reed should be a better quarterback just because last year at this time we were wondering if he was he the backup? And so now he's the man. So a lot to look at. Lot to look at on Saturday.
Speaking of backup quarterbacks, do you think we see Miles O'Neill play on Saturday?
I thought about that same question to myself. Is because you want to get some good rapport between Reed and all those four guys you mentioned. And what about the tight ends? So, and then, next week, Utah State, you're not going to know much at all about Utah State. So I think, Reed plays the first three quarters at least, maybe even one series in the fourth, no matter what the score, because even though, Elko doesn't want to say it, he's thinking Notre Dame down the road. And Utah State better not give A&M too much problems.
Well, and you want to know what you have going into South Bend,
That's
too.
What I mean. So, yeah, I it's like you got to worry about yourself. So I'll be really interested to see, do we see him? And I'd say probably not unless it's near the end for a kneel down and those kind of handoff to the fifth string tailback. But I've been wrong before.
Keeping along this theme, a good thing for A&M, we got to talk with Le'Veon Moss yesterday after practice, and he said he's 100% ready to go, coming off that ACL, MCL tear last season. A&M has kind of had a measured approach on getting him back throughout preseason practice, but he's made it clear like he thinks he's ready to go, 100%, no limitations. Over under, does Moss have 10 carry? Does he have 10 carries or more against UTSA, more or less?
I would take the more, only because I want to see what they got to get him ready to get hit against Notre Dame, which you say what you will. And when you look at the stats, which I did a lot of this week, looking and putting up numbers, Moss was by far the best running back. You look at his average per carry. You look, he was stopped behind the line for only 3 yards. He is the man. And also what's telling on that depth chart, I thought was it was either or with him and Owens, not Daniels. And that tells me last year at this time, some people thought that maybe Reuben Owens would be the featured back because he's the home run guy. And that's how much they have of Owens. So you're right. They got 3 studs back there to get the ball to. But I think there is a pecking order even gone in. And I think it is Moss, Owens, and Daniels, which is nothing wrong with that. But we saw last year, you can lose 1 or 2 of those guys real quick.
Yeah, I'm really curious how they divide the carries among the running backs because they've got 5 guys that I think they feel good about. Jamari Morrow, he's the name to watch. I think that because of the depth A&M has and the guys that are in front of him. I don't know how much we're going to see of him in kind of a featured capacity, but he seems like a guy that he is the future and is a guy that's going to be good for the Aggies down the road.
And here's the deal is Moss has proven he gets stronger as the game goes on. And then once again, is if he only gets 10 carries, what if his 15th, 16th, and 17th carry was going to be the best? You're not going to see that. And once again, it's a great problem to have, not in the old days when somebody carried 25 or 33 times. But when is Moss's best carries? Is it 8 through 15? Is it 10 through 13? I mean, I don't know. That's something that the running backs coach and Elko and Colin Klein have to decide on.
Well, we'd be remiss to talk about some of the A&M connections that the UTSA program has.
Unbelievable.
They're all over the place. You start with Jeff Traylor, right? One, he was linked to the A&M job a couple years ago when Jimbo Fisher was fired and A&M hired Mike Elko. He reportedly even interviewed for the job. He kind of declined to reflect and bring back up that whole process when asked about it this week. But look, the Traylors, they got a lot of A&M ties. All 3 of his kids went to A&M. I even had a class with one of his sons. He probably doesn't remember me. That's okay.
You showed up for class?
I did.
Okay,
I did. That
maybe
was like the one rule that my mom had. She was like,
"Yeah, mom's a teacher."
She was like, "Just show up to class." That was kind of her main rule. So, you're welcome, Mom. Traylor sent several guys that he coached in high school to A&M out of Jacksonville High. Randy McCown coached at Jacksonville, helped lead A&M. I know he didn't play in the Big 12 championship game because he got hurt a couple weeks before. Was it in the Texas game that he got hurt or the week before the Texas game?
I think it might have been the week before, but man, now you're testing me. Way to put me on. I think it was the week before he got hurt.
Either way, A&M won the Big 12 championship that season. Jamie Hightower obviously was a huge recruit out of Jacksonville, kind of a key piece in the end of the Slocum, start of the Fran era. And lo and behold, Owen McCown, the nephew of Randy McCown, is the starting quarterback for the Roadrunners. And one of his top pass catchers is College Station native Houston Thomas, who we've got a feature coming on Thursday's print edition.
Yeah, you go back to when RC dominated recruiting in East Texas. Traylor's brother was even on RC's staff. You go way back. RC had so many ties. The Traylor family had so many ties. And, over the years, East Texas has always been kind to A&M. And there for a while when Mac Brown came in, A&M kind of got away. A&M's back, luckily, in East Texas. When you get somebody like
Terry Bussey.
Terry Bussey. I'm just saying this, and you want to win. You better be in East Texas, and A&M's got good connections, and anytime you got a big in-state school like this, UTSA keeps growing as an institution, as a force. This is a big game for them to come. Last year they usually go to Texas. Now they go here to A&M. So big game for them.
Absolutely. Speaking of East Texas, I think A&M's highest-rated recruit in their 26 class out of the state is running back KJ Edwards from Carthage.
Yeah.
So, and they've got 2 kids committed out of Carthage. So, Elko must have heard East Texas, Beast Texas, the 903.
And hopping around, another thing that I want to see that you can see in a game like this. Their punter only averages 40. A&M's got to get better in the return game. I know, like Elker brought up a good point. Kickoff returns, forget it. The way people kick it anymore, they're only going to return it if you really want them to turn it. But punting is a deal. And last year, Bussey averaged only like 5 yards. They were like 124th in the country. They got to do better on punt returns because when you get in the SEC, probably 4 of those games are going to be one-score games. The kicking game might decide it.
Yeah, one other note on special teams, maybe one of the most underrated oars on this depth chart is at place kicker, where you have incumbent Randy Bond has an oar next to Jared Zirkle, who we saw make some pretty impressive kicks when we got to go out and watch those special teams periods in practice. Look, I'm not saying that Bonds had his spot taken, but that's interesting. I'm curious how that might shake out on Saturday.
Yeah, it's one of those deals you hear things through the grapevines or whatever that maybe missing some field goals you're not supposed to, even in those periods when no one's around. But Randy Bond was like 20 or 24 last week.
He was pretty good last
season.
Had a
career deal, but once again it's a little bit like a relief pitcher. You blow 3 saves in a row, you're not coming out of the bullpen. Somebody else is coming out. So Bond's got to put up or shut up, and he's done a great job. And we saw that in the spring game. A&M is deep at place kicker.
Well, I think I know. I'm pretty sure I know that you're going to pick A&M to win the game on Saturday. The question I have is, I saw on ESPN, I was kind of surprised by this. A&M's like a 24.5 point favorite. Does A&M cover or not?
I've been debating that myself, and I haven't done my pick, but I will put it to cover. And my final analysis was, when it's all said and done, A&M is going to have such an edge on the offensive line, even when they put their second unit in, if they would get ahead. And I think even though UTSA has a good offensive line to start with, if you're UTSA, if you have a chance to win this game come halftime or whatever, it's something different. But also, they want to use this just to get ready for the American Athletic Conference play. So I think garbage time, A&M, and sometimes garbage time decides if the game is over or not. And I think A&M having their second and third string offensive lines will be much better than the second and third string defensive lines, and the running backs as well. So I think A&M's going to cover.
All right. Well, hey, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the My Aggie Nation podcast. Be sure to follow all of our coverage of A&M and UTSA at theeagle.com. We'll be back next week for Robert Cessna. I'm Alex Miller. We'll see you then.